The film begins with the message that its plot is based on real events. Then we see how the window opens in the iron prison door, and the protagonist peeps into it, known under the nickname Moth. The action takes place in Paris in 1931. A bloodworm dressed in an expensive costume opens the safe in the apartment. After that, he descends along the drain and goes to the cabar. There, he has a meeting with the owner of the institution, who is in a hurry to show how his assistants beat the poor fellow. The leader says that he knocked on him to the police. Having taken the prey in the form of diamonds from the bear, the leader hints that Henri is waiting for an even more terrible fate if he tries to hide the revenue. Later, the bloodworm is waiting in the lane when the work shift of his girlfriend is ending, a girl with clever hands. He gives her a necklace, but unaccounted for decoration attracts the attention of one of the leader's henchmen. After a stormy night, complete alcohol and performances of artists, the lessor knocks into the apartment. Without suspecting trouble, Henri opens the door and encounters gendarmes who accuse him of killing a local pimp, the very one who was beaten the day before. Saying goodbye to his beloved, the bloodworm promises to escape and return to her. In the cell, he meets the raider of the holo, who advises him to get the money, otherwise the escape will be impossible. During a group medical examination, the holo shows him Louis Dague, a counterfeiter who is supposed to have money. After the inspection, the prisoners inform that they are deported to French Guiana, a colony in South America, where they will serve the deadline for the end of their lives, engaged in hard labor. On the ship, Henri offers Louis patronage in exchange for part of money to organize an escape. Otherwise, the proletariat who wants to expropriate the loot will make sure that the fraudster does not have time to spend his money. Louis refuses, but that night it witnesses how a huge, fat man kills his neighbor for the sake of a tunnel. Understanding that he can become the following, Louis accepts the Moth's proposal. The next night, the fat man with a knife tries to kill Louis, but Henri protects him. A fight is untied, which the guard stops, letting hot steam into the hold. Henri's bloodied hands indicate his participation in a fight, and he is punished by chasing him in shackles. During the landing, it crashes from the stairs and gets a leg injury. It is placed in a medical unit, and the rest are led to get acquainted with the places of imprisonment. The commandant, who has seen a lot, honestly admits that it is not against attempts by prisoners to escape. Those who will not be shot right away will be sent to a single camera for 2 years, and for a relapse for 5 years. If someone accidentally kills another, then the guillotine, actively used at the beginning of the 20th century, will be used. However, Henri is a real rebel, and warnings do not act on him. He is already building a daring plan to escape. First, he wants to get into the infirmary to the business-like craft. To do this, he needs to negotiate with the local resolving, but needs money. Louis has to extract a capsule with a stitch from the anus while stinging the money. However, the money does not smell. After a voluntary contribution to the foundation of those in need, Louis and Henri fall into the infirmary with the unitars. It would seem that the plan worked, but the counterfeiter will find out the deputy commandant who has personal scores. Therefore, a creative duet is sent to hard labor. Here they get acquainted with the Silae and almost lose the stash when Louis tenses too much, pushing a cart with stones. Henri finds a capsule and returns her Louis, not so much from friendship as from reluctance to keep finances in stuffiness. At a halt, Henri and Cellier discuss the possibility of escape. The watchdog has some outline, but you need money for a boat. The commander interrupts the quarrel between Louis and Gromila, who wants to take money from him. The bloodworm stands up, but the guards stop the riots, having made a warning shot. On the way back, the guards pick up a local ferryman with a party of fresh courtesans. The bloodworm is trying to agree with him about the escape, but he almost surrenders him, bargaining a great price. As a result, he agrees to help, but only for 3 days, after which the boat will desperate from the island. Later, during the shower, a group of comrades tries to redistribute material benefits, but gross physical strength and a little good luck allow Henri to maintain the status quo. However, the incident leads Louis to the idea that he will not stretch here for a long time, and he asks to take him with him into the wild. The next day, prisoners are collected in the square for execution. Some tried to escape, killing a couple of guards. One of them was killed to death. The sentenced people turns out to be sentenced, and Henri gets up, learning him. After cutting off the head, the commandant tells the Moth and another prisoner to remove the body. Henri chooses Louis, who does not smile at all, to carry the corpse. When they carry the body to the boat, the fraudster becomes bad. He falls, unable to rise. The escort beats him with a rapping, and this leads the Moth from himself. The cracker strikes a stained with a stone on the head and is preparing to escape. The exhausted Louis, who lost his glasses and is unable to even stand, has to be left. Henri jumps into the river under the whistle of bullets that the escorts release. By night, the bloodworm gets to the boat. He has no money, but he promises to pay later. In response, the ferryman laughs and his friends with weapons come out of the darkness. Henri agrees with the commandant to catch fugitives, the payment for which will be higher than for convicts. Henri is locked for 2 years in a single chamber, where you need to observe silence. There he is periodically beaten and fed so that he does not die with hunger. However, once he finds a half of the coconut in a bucket of water and a note that says that he will be better fed, improved ration allows the moth to permeate. He begins to engage in physical exercises to maintain himself in shape. Protein is now enough, as in a vaunted American prison. A happy incident helps him to avoid a terrible fate and not to lose its form in imprisonment. The warders who suspected something was wrong with the bucket once check the bucket and find the smuggling coconut. After that, the commandant himself comes to find out who fed him so carefully. The bloodworm diligently keeps silence, even when he is already cut off by the already meager ration. Then they close the roof over his head, plunging it into complete darkness. Even when the hungry and emaciated prisoner is seduced by fresh soup, he does not give out a benefactor. From the darkness, silence, loneliness, and hunger, the moth tormented hallucinations and visions of the past. But he does not give up. 2 years later, he is transferred from the Carter to the infirmary, where he successfully depicts a crazy one. During this time, Louis managed to become a clerk and gain some freedom among prisoners. He visits a friend in the hospital and reports that he did not abandon the idea of escape. But now the scammer himself has already developed the plan. In a few days, a movie screening will be arranged for local important cones. The commandant will increase the guard, but it will be concentrated on a guest and not around the perimeter. Henri plans to details. He simulates bouts of riot so that the doctor gives him a sedative that he successfully puts off. Then he talks with a cute boy, on whom he put his eyes and thugs a sanitar that was descending along the female affection. At the right time, it will have to be distracted. The last bar is a meeting with Seeley. He cut his hand to get into the hospital, but he could still get a boat if there is money. Louis has to give him almost everything that remains. On the appointed day, Louis, playing the role of the waiter, pushes the sedative to the vodka, which he transfers the guard, supposedly as a presentation from the commandant. At this time, Mature is distracting a lustful, healthy guard. Henri and Sally unscrew the legs from the beds, after which they go to the shower, where they stun the guard. With his keys, they go down to the first floor. The protection there is already lying without feelings from the vodka assembly cocktail. The fugitives are waiting for Louis, but he is detained by the commandant. Rain begins suddenly. The open-air film show is interrupted, and guests are accompanied under the roof. In addition, due to the closure, light turns off. To the sounds of the automatic siren, Louis unlocks the door to comrades, and together they go to the wall of the prison. When they jump down, electricity turns on. Louis falls and breaks the leg with surprise. He is dragged in the rain to the bank of the river, where sellers should wait. They are met by armed people. Louis has to give the last money so that they take them to a hidden boat. But the plan succeeds, and already at dawn, the fugitives on the boat get along the river to the exit to the ocean. However, is soon filled with water. Woe dealers do not have time to scoop up water. Selu offers a moth to get rid of excess ballast, implying one of the small fellow travelers. The noble Cracker, of course, refuses. The situation is aggravated when a storm appears on the horizon. Celia, having knocked out a Mature against Louis, takes out a knife. However, the cute, too, was not in vain pleasing the guard to now kill the accomplices. He rushes to the big man but flies overboard. A fight is tied between Selae and the moth, in which the first almost drowned the second. Louis, sitting before, was sitting aside, realizing that such an outcome does not shine at him in anything good. Picks up a drop sharpening and begins to poke it in the back of Seeley. Having thrown off the corpse overboard and picking up a lubricant, they fall into the storm. In the next scene, Henri comes to his senses in a hut on some island. It is not clear how they got to land, but local natives under the leadership of Christian missionaries sheltered them. The bloodworm finds Louis with Sheena on a broken leg and says that it is necessary to leave, but he refuses. When he warned Henry that Seeley could not be trusted, he did not listen to him. He does not want to leave and mature. He finally enjoys popularity not only among thick jailers, but also in charming cans. The moth leaves the coastal camp alone, but rising to the mountain, sees a car of jailers warned by the nun. He hurries a short road back to warn the accomplices, but does not have time. The cute is shot before his eyes, and they were tied with Louis, who, to the core, was touched by the fact that Henri returned behind him, risking himself. In the next scene of a losing weight and graying moth is released from a single chamber after 5 years. The commandant directs him to the island of the devil, a terrible prison on a lone rock in the middle of the ocean, which is impossible to escape, for there is nowhere to go. There, in the old fortress, the recent days of the prison society, which are represented by themselves, survive. Henri meets the aged Louis. The commandant did not finish him alone for 2 years for the first escape, and immediately sent him to an eternal link to the island. The fraudster that has gone in this way way, draws the remnants of the mind on the walls of the picture and lives pretty well compared to the rest of the contingent. But even after so many years, Henri does not suit it. He is still planning an escape. To do this, he needs an exit to the ocean. Louis leads him to a cliff, from which theoretically you can jump into the water and survive. But where to swim without a boat? Observing the waves and tide, the bloodworm notices the pattern and builds a plan to make a raft from improvised materials which the current will attribute to the moth. He and Louis make him from bags, coconuts, and other materials. However, on the day of the escape, the fraudster refuses. He, unlike Henri, has nowhere to return, but here he was already well settled. Friends say goodbye, after which the moth throws the raft into the water and jumps after. Louis looks at circles on the water but does not see a comrade. He already loses hope, takes off his glasses and wipes his tears when a jubilant scream is heard from below. Henri swam and clung to a home, made raft. They again say goodbye to each other, after which the moth is swinging on endless ocean waves. A reactive passenger liner suddenly floats in the sky. The case is transferred in 1969. The aged but surviving Henri flies to Paris, where he is still a criminal. He brings his notes to the publishing house memoirs about a hard life in the colonial settlement that he recorded, still remembers something. These notes should be published precisely in France, in a country that mistakenly sentenced him to such a life. I also advise you to watch other videos on my channel. Good luck.